How's it going, everybody? Today is January 31st, 2021. We are just 60 days from the 2021 opening day for the New York Yankees. Jays versus Yankees. That should be a hell of a matchup. And I wanted to get right to it this morning and talk about the choice words that Brian Cashman had about Gary Sanchez. And at this point, nothing that Brian Cashman does is an accident. Once you've been the GM in New York for over 20 years, you realize that the newspapers and the media is going to pick up on everything that you say. And anything that's even the slightest bit controversial, the media is just going to pick it up and run with it. So when he says something like he said about Gary Sanchez, he knows that Gary's going to hear about it. So let's first set the stage. After the 2017 season, in which the Yankees had kind of a magical run and came one game away from the World Series, the Yankees let go of their popular manager, Joe Girardi. Now, Girardi had a bit of a hiccup in the division series, but overall, I thought he did a really nice job with the Yankees, and he really motivated that young core of so-called baby bombers. One of the reasons that he was let go, however, was because of his approach with Gary Sanchez, which some people thought was too rough and some people thought wasn't rough enough. Now, you might recall that Gary Sanchez said he didn't know why he was benched and was kind of caught off guard that he was benched in the playoffs this year, and it really shouldn't have been a surprise to him. So this is what Brian Cashman had to say about it. I think the whole world knows why he was benched. It's pretty much self-awareness at this point. You had a horrible year on both sides of the ball. You lost your job in the most important time of the season, which is October baseball. I'm not sure if there's an explanation necessary. Your play speaks for itself, and you either play well enough to keep playing, or you don't. Whether you were told directly, I'm not saying he wasn't, I'm not saying he was, I really don't care. I've had a lot of conversations with Gary. I know the talent level he possesses. I do know he cares. I do know he works. And I'm pretty certain you'll see a different version from him this year. So that's pretty tough words from Brian Cashman right there. He's usually not on the offensive against his players, but I think he recognizes that Gary Sanchez is one of those guys who kind of needs a little kick in the pants every once in a while. And I think that the kid gloves that he's been handled with since Joe Girardi left has kind of set back his development a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him this year. I've seen some footage of him down in the Dominican Winter League, and to me it looks like his swing is pretty much the same. He's still trying to launch home runs. I have seen him go the opposite way a few times, but they didn't really look that intentional. And again, the pitching is not as good in the winter leagues as it's going to be during the season. I want to see him come up with runners on base, and if he falls behind in the count, shorten up his swing and try and use the whole field. I don't mind him trying to go for the downs early in the count when you can do some damage, but don't take fastballs right down the middle for 2 strikes and then try and hack at a slider in the dirt and try and pull it to left field. That approach isn't going to work. Masahiro Tanaka. I watched every single one of his starts with the Yankees over the last 7 years. He was one of my favorite pitchers, and he's officially gone back to Japan, signing with the Rakuten Golden Eagles. And he's also launched a YouTube channel, which, after just a couple of days and 2 videos, has 92,000 subscribers. It'll probably have more by the time this video uploads in a couple of hours. But as hard as I've worked, I've been putting in like 5 hours a day for over a year on this channel, and I'm at like almost 8,000. So congrats on Masahiro Tanaka for the quick jump start. A lot of these Japanese pitchers have had a ton of success on YouTube. Yu Darvish, for one. These guys just have a huge following, and I can't blame him for starting that side business up. It gives him something to do after his career is over. You know, he can post videos. His wife is a big-time K-pop singer. So I wish Masahiro Tanaka the best. He did hint that he has some unfinished business in America, so we may see him come back to the Yankees at some point. Brian Cashman said he'd love to have Masahiro Tanaka come back, but given his elbow injury history and the fact that he's about to resume that tough Japanese throwing schedule that he didn't have the past few years in America, I just don't know if his elbow's going to hold up. We'll see. Just 2 prospects on MLB's top 100 prospect list from the Yankees organization. Number 32 is the youngest man on the list. His name is Jason Dominguez. I'm sure if you watch this channel, you're pretty familiar with him. He's just 17 years old. He's yet to play a minor league game, and somehow he's ranked 32nd overall. They estimate his arrival as 2024. I honestly think that he'll be there a couple years earlier than that. I would not be shocked if he makes the major leagues at 19 years old in 2022. The other man on the list was number 88 overall, Clarke Schmidt. As you know, Clarke Schmidt made his major league debut in 2020, but he really hasn't pitched much above Double-A. And he obviously had some command issues when he came up to the big leagues last year, but it looks like he's fixed those issues. I actually put up a video yesterday comparing his mechanics. He was falling off towards first base with every delivery, basically, and that's a sign that you're opening up your front elbow kind of too laterally. And what he's done is he's actually started to tuck that elbow more. You can see it in his follow-through, and that's allowed him to continue his momentum directly towards home plate. I think that's going to correct a lot of those command issues, and now the sky is the limit for Clarke Schmidt. Another guy who was on Keith Law's top 100 prospect list but isn't on Major League Baseball's list is Deivi Garcia. Now, Deivi Garcia did pitch in 6 games last season, so maybe he's graduated to being an MLB player in the eyes of Major League Baseball. But I feel like Deivi Garcia has a really bright future, despite his pitching savant statistics, which show him as having below average stuff. He's got really good command, he's got really good mechanics, and we know he can throw harder than he did last season. Garcia will definitely compete for that number 5 spot in the rotation, but he's going to have his hands full because Clarke Schmidt looks really, really good in these recent bullpen sessions. So fingers crossed that the Yankees have some young pitching that's on the brink of being very effective in the major leagues. Something that all baseball fans, not just Yankees fans, should keep an eye on. Jeff Passan is hinting that he's going to release a big story this year that's going to create ripples throughout the sport. I don't know what it is. I hope it's not another cheating scandal. I hope it's something positive, but how often are big stories like this positive? Whatever happens, I'll be hopping on here to talk about it on a live stream, so be sure and subscribe if you are not subscribed and hit that notifications button so that way you get alerted whenever I go live. A lot of people seem to think that it's a foregone conclusion that the Yankees will cakewalk to an AL East title this year, and I just wanted to say not so fast. Now look, I am a Yankees fan, and I'm pretty obviously optimistic about the Yankees players, but there's some good teams in this division. The Rays did lose Blake Snell, but they've got a really good bullpen. Whether or not that bullpen can handle the constant stress of a 162-game season, I do have my doubts. They're kind of built for a shorter season like we had last year. But the Jays are really, really good this year, and they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think it's pretty fun that the Yankees and the Jays open up against each other because it could be a chance for those teams to send a message to one another. The Jays have some young, up-and-coming players who are very exciting. Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I know Guerrero didn't have the season last year that everyone has expected of him, but he's lost a lot of weight and he looks ready to prove himself in the big leagues. He's obviously got a Hall of Fame pedigree. If the Yankees can't get healthy and stay healthy this year, the Rays and the Jays are going to be big problems. On my last live stream, somebody asked for a Super Bowl prediction, and I don't know why you would want my Super Bowl prediction. I never talk football. I'm not much of a football guy. I pretty much only watch the playoffs. But I will say this. I've learned in my years watching football not to count out Tom Brady. The guy's just genetically different, and he's super clutch. And having Rob Gronkowski and probably Antonio Brown in the lineup is going to make them the favorite, in my opinion. I know that Patrick Mahomes is kind of the up-and-coming starlet of the league, but I'm going with Tom Brady on this one. I think the Buccaneers are going to win 24-21, take it to the bank, or don't. Okay, this final segment is called Let's Argue. I stole it from Anthony Fantano from the Needle Drop. I love that idea, where I basically asked for your hot takes on the community section, and I'm going to reply to them. But first, you're going to notice that the camera switches a little bit because I recorded these last night in that chair behind me while I was relaxing. I wanted to test out a new lapel mic that I'm thinking about using to do demonstrations, baseball demonstrations, as I do player breakdowns. I feel like I could probably talk about more pitching breakdowns, but it's easier to do if I'm actually standing on a mound, so look for that. But I did want to test out the lapel mic, so tell me how the sound is. I wasn't crazy about it, but it is what it is. And so here are the answers to your question. Let's argue. Nick Monaco says that Luis Severino is going to make 3 or less starts. Well, considering how few starts he's made the last 2 seasons, that would be pretty much disastrous for his career. I think that coming back from Tommy John surgery, as long as he doesn't have any other health issues, should be pretty routine at this point. You don't want to say routine because really coming back from any surgery can be difficult for any human being. We're very fragile creatures, especially when you're having surgery on your arm that throws 100 miles an hour. But I think that enough guys have gone through it and enough guys have had this surgery that they pretty much know what they're doing by now, and they know how to rehab these injuries. Aaron Hicks had this surgery last year. He said he's not 100%, so there's no guarantee that Luis Severino can get back to 100%, but I think 3 starts would be disastrous. Emerson Alberhasky, hope I pronounced that right, says Gleyber Torres will win MVP. This one might not be that much of a stretch. Now, Gleyber Torres has had some defensive issues over the past couple of years. He really isn't a great defensive shortstop, but he's young enough that I think he can still get better. And given the accuracy of the shifts, I mean, look at the playoffs. How many balls got through the infield? They basically know how to shift guys now. Gleyber Torres is not a guy who is going to impress you with his range, but if he can just make the plays on defense and have a Gleyber Torres offensive season like he did a couple of years ago, let's say he hits 280 with 38 to 42 home runs, as we know he's capable of doing. He hit 38 home runs 2 years ago. I think that's got to get some MVP consideration. But again, it depends on what the Yankees do as a team. If the Yankees come in 3rd place, which I don't think they will, but the Blue Jays are tough, and the Rays, obviously, in the World Series last year, Rays got weaker, arguably. But if the Yankees don't win, then it's going to be unlikely that anybody on their team wins an MVP. But if they do win, then you could see a guy like Gleyber Torres, if he has a monster year, getting it because he's a shortstop. He plays a very important position. He's going to have a lot of RBI opportunities. That whole lineup can get on base. There's always going to be guys on base. I could see Gleyber Torres, if he has that kind of season like everybody thinks he can have, where he hits 40 home runs, I could see him driving in 130 runs. Lori C says Gary Sanchez will gain less than 25 pounds this season. Damn, ice cold, ice cold. Jaden Sanchez says that Aaron Judge will stay healthy all season and dominate pitching. I don't know if this is that much of a hot take. I mean, if Aaron Judge stays healthy, he's dominated. I mean, when he's in the lineup, he's one of the deadliest players in all of baseball. All of baseball, not just the American League, not just New York. He's up there with Mike Trout on an offensive level when he's healthy. When he went on the injured list last year, he had 9 home runs. He was leading the league, and I think he was leading the league by 2. And he was slugging like over 600. He was just on fire. He had those 5 games in a row where he had home runs, capped off against the Red Sox. You just cannot mess around with Aaron Judge when he's healthy. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch to think that he would have an MVP season. Oh, and by the way, when he's healthy, again, one of the best outfielders in all of baseball. A couple of years ago, he barely played in the outfield, and he was one of the best at saving runs defensively. Johnny Chow says that every once in a while somebody will catch COVID-19 and they're going to have to shut things down. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year. I certainly hope not. But I will say this, I think that they're going to focus on getting these guys the vaccine in spring training now that there is a vaccine available. And these guys are high risk. I mean, not so much in terms of the effects of the illness. I mean, most of the guys who got it, other than maybe Freddie Freeman, didn't really have many problems. But the fact that these guys basically live and work together in this small clubhouse, I mean, they share buffets, they share showers, for God's sake. I just don't see them taking any chances. I think they're going to make everybody get the vaccine. Wafe Gaudiator says that Gerrit Cole will be the MVP and that Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton will be 2nd and 3rd. Now, while I think any 3 of those guys could end up winning the MVP, I can pretty much guarantee that they won't finish 1, 2, and 3. The Yankees would have to pretty much win 150 games for that to happen because there's an anti-Yankee bias among the sports writers. People don't want to vote for Yankees, and nobody's going to put them in all 3 slots, especially from other cities. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps other Yankees fans find the channel.